y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle and I'm the owner of Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo. Today we are going to be working with some patterns and decals from May's Flock Box. If you did not get a chance to snag one of those boxes, the patterns are up on my website for individual purchase. I just am obsessed with balloon dogs lately, and I thought that patriotic balloon dogs would be perfect for the 4th of July. If you are in my Drunk Flamingo group, you may have already seen this tutorial. I did do parts of it live in my group, but don't worry, I always edit them and condense them down. So if you guys need to go back and rewatch certain parts, this is going to be a sped up version. Before we get started, make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you are up to date on all of my latest tutorial drops. Also, don't forget to check the description where I list all items needed to recreate this tumbler, as well as discount codes to my favorite suppliers. If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask down below and I will always come back and answer them for you. All right, guys, well, let's get started on this tutorial. All right, y'all, so here are the two patterns we're going to be using today. Birdie took off running across my paper. As you can see, her little scratch marks on them, so these are now mine. So I am basically just marking on my paper the height that I need this pattern to be, and then I'm going to go cut it with my paper cutter. So one vinyl wrap is going to go on the top part of the cup, and the second wrap is going to go on the lower half of the tumbler, and then we're going to do some stripes in between. So we are using the hinge method, so I basically just cut a little bit of the backing off of the vinyl, and this one was giving me a run for my money because it is tapered on the bottom, and I forgot how difficult it was to wrap a tumbler that is tapered, because it has probably been years since I have done that, way back before we had straight tumblers to work with, and that's why I typically don't use tumblers that have a taper. So I was just kind of piecing this together, or not piecing it together, but I was working with it a little bit differently than I typically would a wrap. So with straight tumblers, you can just wrap it all the way around and have no problem. But this one does have a taper. So I was warming the vinyl up with my heat gun. It wasn't on a super high setting. It was kind of medium, just to warm up that vinyl a little bit. And then I was stretching it as I wrapped it. So this made the vinyl a little bit more flexible. And I think that I lifted this up and removed it at least probably 10 times before I got it how I wanted it. So once I got it wrapped around, I just kind of cut it at an angle, and I just said, forget it, we're just going to apply it. And then I'm going to edge the bottom with my edging tool from CamiPaige Boutique, and then the top part of the vinyl I'm just going to trim with my blade. So again, I'm just warming up my vinyl. You can see here that there is a pretty large air bubble trapped underneath it. So if there is an air bubble, I just get my pen, or if you don't have one of those, you can get a needle or other sharp tool and just poke a little hole, and then slowly press that air out from underneath the vinyl. And just make sure that your hole is really tiny. I don't try to make a large hole or anything like that. I just barely poke that vinyl. So we're using our edging tool to get a nice clean rim around the bottom of our tumbler. If you guys do not have an edging tool, I definitely suggest one. I have 2 of them, and we do have a discount code, which is Damn Fancy. And since this cup had kind of a natural curve to it, I just followed that natural curve with my blade to even out the vinyl on the top half of this little section. And we are going to glitter and pinstripe this area anyway, so I wasn't super concerned with it being, you know, 100% straight. Pinstripes can help camouflage some flaws. So if you guys watch my tutorials, y'all will know that I like to try to disguise my seams as well as I can. And I usually try to match up little pieces of the vinyl from one side to the other, but this one was just kind of a floral pattern. So instead of trying to match up the different elements, I'm just cutting out another flower and we're just going to apply that over the seam. So I'm just trying to decide how I want to apply it. And I did decide to cut this little leaf off. So we're just applying our little flower. And then I'm going to cut half of another flower and connect it to the other little flower that's down at the bottom. And this is just a way to help kind of disguise seams if seams bother y'all. I know some people that they don't care if they have a seam, but just for me, I would prefer to disguise it as well as I could. And yes, it can get a little obsessive about the placement of the little elements, but we are our own worst critic, right? All right, so now that I have the bottom vinyl on, we're going to do the top one, and this one will be a lot more easy. So now we're going to use the hinge method, and I'm taking my cup cradle, which is also by CamiPaige Boutique, and we're going to draw a straight line down my tumbler, and we're going to use this to apply our vinyl. So I just wrap it around, and then I realize that the vinyl is not long enough. What is happening? I think that this is probably the first time that I used this tumbler. I think this is the Big Betty from Steel Magnolia. I'm not 100% sure on that name, but I will link it down below. So then I was like, how am I going to make this work? What am I going to do? So I went ahead and applied my vinyl like I normally would. And yes, this is a regular 12 by 12 sheet of vinyl. This tumbler just happens to be a little bit more than 12 inches around. So I was debating on just covering this whole section with another piece of vinyl, but it wouldn't match up perfectly. So I'm sitting here like trying to contemplate what I need to do. So y'all can sit here and watch me through my thought process. I was trying to see if I had another spare sheet of vinyl where I could match up the end of one vinyl and then overlap it on the other side. So I'm going to cut this with my paper cutter and then kind of match it up. But then I realized that this was not the section that I needed. The blue dogs lined up, but then I had this little random red dog. So I was trying to find the exact section that I needed. So then I was like, maybe I can heat up the vinyl a little bit and like stretch it over just a little bit. I just need it like not even a quarter of an inch over, but it wasn't working, y'all. It wasn't working. I'm like laughing at myself because I know what I was thinking at the time of me doing this. I was like, this is so frustrating. It would have been just so easy to just wrap this around there. But, you know, I always like to show you guys my not even mistakes, because this wasn't even a mistake. It was just a situation. So I like to show you guys situations that may arise and how we're going to work through them. So I finally found the section that I needed. So I am just lining up these little dogs. I cut it right where the little dogs lined up. But then again, this is going to overlap and cause another seam. So I cut like a little wavy line, so I wasn't cutting through any stars or any of the little dogs. So then I just had these little dogs overlapping part of the other balloon dog. And if you guys know me, you know that that bothered me. So again, I have all these little balloon dogs, and I am going to cut out the individual balloon dogs and apply them onto the vinyl. Yes, I know this is super time consuming. If I were doing this for an order or selling multiple of them, I probably would not worry too much about the balloon dogs, especially since I did decide to go back and apply like a little foil faux bleach spot and a decal. But at the time of me doing this, I wasn't too sure how I was going to complete this cup. So I just wanted to make sure that the seams were disguised if I needed them to be. So I'm just overlapping these little balloon dogs. They're like, you know, hanging out, talking to each other. You know, they're a little bit closer together than the other balloon dogs. And I will say that after you apply a layer of epoxy, we all know that epoxy smooths items out. So even though we are layering this vinyl, once we apply a layer of epoxy, you are not going to be able to tell that they are different layers, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to let you guys watch me apply these two other little balloon dogs. So we have one more left. And this is one of the reasons why I typically don't throw away scrap vinyl, because I can always find a use for it. This was just a little scrap piece of vinyl that I probably would have thrown away, but now it is being used. And we have a couple birds out today, if you guys can hear them. I finally downloaded this little bird app. I think it's called Merlin. And I can record the birds out here, and it will let me know all the different birds that I have. It's pretty cool. It's a free little app. So if you guys have birds in your area, definitely check that out, because it was really neat. I think at one point I had like 12 birds back here, and some I had never even heard of before. They're unique. All right, so now that I have all of my little balloon dogs on here, I'm just heating everything up with my heat gun. This is going to help the layers of vinyl fuse together, kind of like melt together a little bit. And also we're folding over that top rim so that I can edge it. This is my second edger from CamiPaige Boutique. If you guys have not used the edging tools, I will let you guys know that the bottom of the cup needs to be edged on the second step up, and the top of the tumbler is edged on the first step up. So I like to keep one blade in one edging tool and then the other blade setting in the second edging tool. That way I don't have to switch back and forth. And again, I'm just going around and popping any little air bubbles that I see. So there are my little overlapping balloon dogs. So now that we have all of our vinyl on, we are going to glitter some stripes. And I really liked the vintage feel of this balloon dog vinyl. So I wanted to pull some vintage glitters. So we are going to be working with these three. Sapphire Martini is a really pretty, just a royal blue. It's almost a little bit like brighter royal blue. Or maybe I'm using, I think it was Berry Patriotic. But either way, it's the same color. It's just a different cut. And I'm going to use white linen because it is a little bit more of a creamy white versus a white white. And then the red is an extra fine, I think it's Christmas Sangria. And for those of you that may not know, I no longer offer glitter on the Drunk Flamingo website, but Brooke from CamiPaige did take over my glitter line. So all of my awesome colors that you loved before, including these three, can now be found on her website. So I am just going in with glitter glue and a thin paintbrush. This is a square paintbrush, and it was pretty much a third of my space that I needed. So I figured that that would be pretty easy to just paint a straight line of glitter glue, apply my glitter, and then go on to the next one. But as always, I always think that I can get away without base coating, and I am always wrong. So if you guys are watching this and you think, oh, I can just apply my glitter glue and not have to worry about base coating a different color, don't do it. You're wrong. So I just dried this really quickly with my heat gun, and we're going in and doing a second layer of glitter glue and glitter. Even though this is opaque metallic glitter, I could still see the white through it quite a lot. So we're just doing a second coat really quick. And there's our evening train too, guys. So I am drying that glitter glue again with my heat gun, and I'm going to brush it off really well. That way, when we go to apply our next color, if it falls onto the red, it's going to be dry so that the blue will not stick to the red. So we can just easily brush everything off when it's good and dry. And I am doing my darker colors first, because you don't want to do the white first and then do the red and blue. Even if your white glitter is completely dry and then you try to sprinkle the red or the blue, some glitter grains are going to get stuck in that white, and then it will look a little dirty and just not as clean and crisp. And this one I was able to get away with just doing one coat. This was a little larger grain than the red. I think it's Christmas Sangria. It's like an extra fine, and Berry Patriotic is just extra fine. So the cut is a little bit bigger, so it took up a little bit more room and it wasn't see-through. So the last color I'm doing is white linen, which is an even larger cut than Berry Patriotic. And it's also white, so I don't need to base coat this one anyway. So we are just sprinkling that on there. And then I'm going to let this dry, and once it dries, I'm going to put 2 coats of epoxy on this tumbler. And this is where my live started, where we're going to do some foiling and some decals. So this has been epoxied 2 times and sanded, and now I'm going to go in and do a faux bleach spot, and we're going to be using the foil adhesive from Artistic Painting Studio. And if you guys were on the live, you would have heard how I like to do most of my foils on my tumblers kind of distressed. So I am just getting my basic shape down right now, but I'm not going in with a soft brush and a sweeping motion. I'm using this stipple brush so I can really kind of distress the texture with how that adhesive is applied. And even if you use this method, you still want to make sure that your layer is not super thick, because if you get your adhesive too thick, it's not going to dry properly, and then it's just going to pull up when you go to apply your foils. And since the foil adhesive does take a little long to dry, I did do that first, and then I did the pinstripes. I just was very careful about applying the pinstripes. And we are using white and a kind of like a slate blue nail striping tape. And if you guys do not know, I do have a pinstripe file on thedrunkflamingo.com, and it has my most popular sizes that I use, which are 0.07, 0.05, and 0.03. I will typically print out a full sheet at a time. That way I have 3 different sizes in each color. So if I want to layer them or just have different color options, I have that available. And when I was wrapping my first pinstripe, we all know it's not going to wrap around, because that vinyl we already know was more than 12 inches. So I'm just going to go and add a little piece of white to connect that pinstripe at the end. And I like to use these little tools. They just help me kind of really get things nice and straight if I need them. And I would suggest that if you are applying pinstripes on a tumbler that is curved, especially right on the curve, definitely choose a vinyl that is flexible. So the regular colors that you're going to have to choose from, like your whites, blacks, and other colors, those are going to be pretty flexible. Now, the metal or chrome or holographic vinyls, I would not suggest, because those are thicker and a little less flexible than regular vinyl. So the regular vinyl just kind of helps it kind of form around the curves a little bit better. So you're not going to have any creases or bends in the pinstripe. So now we're just using a little piece of vinyl to connect that first pinstripe. And now we're going to go in with the slate blue nail tape. I got a mixed nail tape pack on Amazon, and I've probably had it for 2 or 3 years maybe. It comes with tons of different colors. I will link it down below if you guys have not used nail tape before. I do like them, and they are perfect for layering. And I thought this color just went perfect with the little balloon dogs that we have up here. And y'all can see I like to work in sections at a time. So I kind of line up about an inch and then I smooth it down. So I'm just going to speed up the last couple of pinstripes. We are just applying them super quick. And after I applied the pinstripes, I kind of tested my little foil adhesive and it still needed to dry a little bit more. So a way to speed that up is to get out your heat gun or a hair dryer. If you do use a heat gun, make sure that you have a setting on it that is low. I would not recommend putting your heat gun on the highest setting because that's just going to heat up that adhesive and make it kind of gummy and even more liquidy, and we don't want that. We just want it to dry and be tacky. So I just have this on the lowest setting and I'm just focusing on the parts that are still white. So if y'all have not used a foil adhesive, when you first apply the adhesive, it is white, and then as it dries, it's going to turn clear and kind of transparent. So when you see that that adhesive is clear and no longer white, then you will know it's ready to apply that foil. So I'm pretty sure I'm just answering questions now on the live. So I just like to cut my foil, and we are using the new tilted cradle from CamiPaige Boutique. If y'all don't have one of these, they are awesome. I have already used this tilted cradle so many times and I love it. And this clearly fits a 32-ounce tumbler, so I don't think that y'all have a problem with any cups that you have. So I'm just applying my foil. We're going to apply it with the pattern side up so that the backing is attaching to the tumbler. I just kind of squeegeed it a little bit with my little vinyl squeegee, and then I lifted it up slowly. So now what I'm going to do is just cut another little section, and I'm just going to focus around the edges and then any spots that may have kind of a blank spot. And I'm just pushing it in with my fingers just to help that distressing edge. And then I like to feel just to see if there are any other tacky spots that I missed. But this one was pretty good. So now we're going to apply our decal. I'm just going to apply this right over the foil. And this particular decal is not weeded when you purchase. Some decals, for some reason, if they have little pointy parts like these stars, they have a tendency to lift. And I definitely don't want the decals lifting while they're shipping to you. So I just leave them unweeded and you guys can just weed them yourself. They're super easy to weed. It's not like a regular vinyl decal. The vinyl just comes right off. And a lot of times I will just apply these by peeling off the decal and sticking it to my tumbler. But since this had a couple different stars and I think a couple of the letters were detached from the main body of the decal, I am going to use transfer tape. And I like my transfer tape with lines, that way I can line it up with the top of the cup and then just kind of slide it down slowly. And now he's on the cup. How cute is he? And I like to apply like a foil spot or a bleach spot or something like that when I have a decal that is close to the background that it's going to be applied to. So this balloon dog, we were applying it on a vinyl pattern of balloon dogs, so I didn't want it to get lost in the rest of the vinyl, so that's why I applied the silver foil with stars, kind of foil spot, bleach spot, whatever you want to call it, so he stands out a little bit more. And I believe that this foil was from Artistic Painting Studio. It could have been from Southern Belle Glitter, but I'm not too sure. So I will take this down to my turner and put 2 additional coats of epoxy on this to seal it all in, and then he will be complete. And here is a sneak peek of some pen and tumbler charms I will be using soon. And here are my finished pictures. I love how this little guy came out. I am literally obsessed with balloon dogs right now. I think they're so fun. And I especially love kind of the vintage feel that these give off. If you guys have these patterns, if you've used them, please make sure to post in the Drunk Flamingo, because I love to see what you guys come up with and what kind of things inspire y'all. If you enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my Damn Fancy tutorial group or my Drunk Flamingo group that are on Facebook. Both are linked in the description. Thanks for watching.